But anyhow, so yeah, Mara wanted to start a podcast, which I think is kind of like it's called Forward Focus of the PWHL.
When's the last time we've been together for 7 years? When have I ever asked you to sit down and watch a men's hockey game with me? Ever.
Never.
How excited was I when the games were on last night? Before we get into all of that though, so like pretend we're courting like we did back in the day. Tell me
Core team.
tell me about your resume, your hockey resume.
So I've been coaching. I think this is my 11th year coaching. Um, Never coached
Is it
in,
really?
yeah, I think it's 11 years now.
Go.
Going to year 11, so halfway to retirement, maybe. I don't know. Um, yeah. So anyhow, so I mean, I played in the year after I went to the coast for a little bit. Tried to go to the coast during 2012 when the lockout happened. That would kind of shut that down. I got a coaching after that. I was fortunate to get a coaching back where I played juniors in Hampton Roads, where I met you, obviously. I was fortunate again to move work with the pro hockey team at their time and
Is that
had
what
a
they call
relationship
a
there.
lucky bounce? Am I using that term
Yeah, that
correctly?
would be a lucky bounce or right place, right time, I suppose. Um, yeah, and then obviously, I got into coaching from there. Coached as an assistant coach for 4 years in Hampton.
Mm.
I believe it was 4 years before moving out to Wisconsin, my first head coaching job in lacrosse. From there, I went to North American League. We had our daughter. We went back to Virginia. Went to the NCDC last year, and now we're back here in Wisconsin to be here hopefully a long time.
So USPHL,
So I coached in
NA3.
USPHL, NA3, North American League, NCDC. Um, yeah, so in
I
11
like the
years,
NA3. We like the NA3.
they're all good. I
Yeah.
mean, they're all just living. The hockey landscape has changed even since I got into it, like pretty dramatically in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but I've been doing it 11 years now, and it's been a blast.
Yeah.
Been fortunate to work with some really amazing individuals and some amazing players. Um, so yeah, to save time, that's the gist of my resume.
And boo, no one wants to hear about boys hockey.
Yeah, exactly. Like so.
Not why we're here. Um, well, I like to say we're a hockey power couple, but that's a little misleading.
Mm,
I run the media for your team, which I really enjoy doing. Um, before I met you, I didn't know what ice hockey was. I'm from Virginia, so we don't. I mean, we can't even claim the capitals because that's DC. I'm from the most southeastern point of Virginia, where there's just I couldn't even believe there was a junior team where I was from. No one plays hockey. Um, so when you buff guy came up, he was like, "Ooh, play hockey." I'm like, "You're a real hottie, but I don't know what that means."
yeah, that means nothing to me. You're short.
It must keep you fit. Um, so I think through this process, I'd like to learn more about hockey and encourage fans who want to support the PWHL but don't necessarily understand where to get started being a fan in the sport. It's like most people end up being football fans, right? Because they grew up and their parents put it on every Sunday and you
Hmm.
inherit that team and you learn about it through absorption. It's just a part of your family's culture. And I never had that with hockey. So I learned through talking with billet parents. I learned through running your team's media. I learned through listening to you on phone calls with colleges and like the back end of the industry, which is a really interesting perspective to get, not
Yeah.
only like the on ice stuff, but everything. I mean, you don't get that insight unless you're in the business, right? And some of the players don't even get the industry stuff. I'm sure most of them don't.
Yeah, you probably you get a behind the doors look at all the
Yeah.
conversations I'm having with either advisors, players, or schools,
And most of
or
your
other
kids
teams.
have
Yeah,
advisors, so your kids are paying someone. So they don't see the industry stuff either. They have someone who makes that phone call for them. So it's
yeah,
that's a
sure.
really like interesting take I want to bring into this podcast is we don't understand the women's hockey industry because it's brand new. So
Hmm.
it'll be interesting to get your opinion on like where you think it'll go, how you think it'll work, like how it's going to change the landscape of girls hockey, girls high school hockey, college hockey, like if fans are going to get more excited about college hockey now. Like I admittedly didn't keep up with it, but that might be changing now because I've been really excited about this professional women's league. And I was just reading some of the bios, and two of the players were like graduated from UW Minnesota in 2023. Like just straight out of college again,
Right.
right place, right time. A professional women's league opened up like the year after they graduated. These girls, they had like 2000 birth years. It's like, oh my god, like
Yeah, I mean,
they're so
I was looking through
young.
some of the rosters, and there's because you have some women who are former Olympians for especially like Canada and the U.S., and so
Mm-hmm.
like they're obviously the age difference is very different versus some of these girls
Mm-hmm.
um, coming right out of college. So that is interesting, I will
Yeah,
say.
but I think the forward focus of today is, there's 6 teams right now. Like you said, there's it's not Boston, it's Massachusetts, right? We go by states,
Yeah, they do state
but they're
names.
out of Boston.
Yeah,
So Massachusetts, Montreal, Toronto, Minnesota, and New York, right?
yeah. Well, team out of Massachusetts is called it's Boston. They called the Boston
Yeah, yeah.
Wicked, Boston Wicked.
Okay.
Clever name.
Yeah. So because you only have 6 teams right now, 24 season game, right? And I'm not a big fan of comparing this new realm of sports to men's hockey, but just for reference, professional men's hockey is how many games per season?
I think they play 82, and there's 32 teams on the NHL. I
Right.
probably should know all that off the top of my head, but I don't keep track of it
We
enough.
have 2 kids. You don't have time to watch hockey
Yeah, I mean,
anymore.
they're vastly different. Even like I was talking to you beforehand, and one of the biggest things I kind of, I mean, because I'm always watching video, whether it's junior hockey or NHL clips
Mm-hmm.
or whatever it may
Mm-hmm.
be, a lot of college clips, and just the first thing I take away is just the size difference. Like I was looking at the average size for the players in this
Mm-hmm.
league, it's 5'7", 150.
But okay, before we go back to the 24 season game, and sorry to jump around, we're new with this.
Sure.
Um, I you gave your resume. I didn't give mine. I we got a little sidetracked, but I obviously don't have a hockey background, but I have a background in things that are very much male dominated. I was a firefighter for a couple of years and still have my certifications. I was a competitive strongman for many, many years until moving around just got too much to keep up with it. And I remember one time I was at a competition that I'd been training for months for. And one of the things we needed to do was lift concrete stones onto a platform that was taller than my body
Hmm.
and about 3 to 4 times my body weight. And also, I was about 6 months postpartum with our daughter. And one of the things that was said to me, and I won't say who said it to me, um, may or may not be in this room, was
Hmm.
watching the men do it was so much more fun than watching the women do it. But when you break it down by number, the ratio of what the men were lifting compound, like strong men are, they're big boys, okay? Some of them are what, like lightweight for strongman I think is like 220. That's the lightest category weight you can be. A lot of them are over 300 pounds, so them lifting a 300-pound stone, it's not really that impressive. But when these women are lifting 3.5 times their body weight above their head, mind you, because men platforms are the same as women's platforms, a lot of them
Hmm.
are taller. It may look cooler
Yeah, I
because the
think
stone said 300 pounds, but me at 130 lifting 175 over my head,
yeah,
to
I think
me,
Brian Shaw's 6'7".
yeah,
Oh.
to me, it's a lot more impressive to watch the women. It may not be as cool because the weight isn't as large, but when you think about percentages and body weight and all of that, I'm way more impressed by what some of these women can do. Are the numbers as large? No, but that makes sense, right? Like, um, again, like just coming back to why I don't want to spend a lot of time throughout this series comparing men and women hockey because it doesn't help anything, right? They're two totally different animals. Um, anyway, spending a lot of time in industries that are male dominated. You think firefighters, you don't. Luckily, now we're starting to think more about women, but traditionally that's not true. Strong man, it's called strong man. Like we don't even really call it strong women competitions when women are involved. It's still the sport of strong man, which is why I'm so jazzed about this league. Like I've traditionally never been interested in hockey, even being married to a hockey coach for this will be 5 years. We've been together for 7, almost 8.
Hmm.
I like supporting your teams. I like watching you coach, but I'm never I've never been as invested as I am and excited as I am about this league. But 24 game season, not in the interest of comparing men to women, but much shorter season, a lot fewer teams, right? We've got 6 teams now. Do you think that's going to change over the years as this franchise hopefully continues to grow? Like, do you see a lot more teams coming on in the next year? Do you think it's going to be a 3 to 5 year thing? Like, do you think investors are going to be like, oh man, I got to get in on this? And, maybe we see Team Wisconsin.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's no different. There's a reason their original 6 teams is in the original 6 markets for the NHL wasn't originally NHL. So, I think it's going to be very similar to the birth of that. We look at this is going way back to like, Maurice Richard, for example, where like hockey players weren't paid a ton of money there. They had sometimes to work 2 jobs to play professionally. The big thing back then about like French Canadian players, like, you know, English is the language of the NHL. So even players over in Europe learn English if they're going to play in that league. It's
Mm-hmm.
like English is the language of business,
Mm-hmm.
the language of NHL. So that was a big thing at that time was like coaches starting to speak French because there were so many French players, but it was kind of a taboo thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's similar as far as like infancy of that way. I mean, if I'm an investor, I think it's a no-brainer to jump into like just the success that it's had. And it's only been what 3 weeks now,
3 weeks.
but the games were really exciting. I mean, I think it was 13,000 people were at the Minnesota game,
And
so
the
it set a
over
record already.
13, and the previous high was 7,700 something fans in Sweden, and this
Yeah,
was like years ago. So they almost doubled it, almost doubled it,
yeah,
and that was in Minnesota too, I believe. So
yeah. It was.
yeah.
So I think the league is. I don't know how fast the growth is gonna come by any means, but I do think it's gonna. I don't. I think it's gonna grow relatively quickly. I mean, it's
Mm,
again like women's hockey right now. It's a huge market.
mm-hmm,
It's a big emerging market in youth sports, at least for the hockey industry. Um, and like most things, if there's money involved and money to be made, people are going to support it.
mm-hmm.
And I think just seeing the early success that this is having, I would imagine it's going to grow.
Yeah.
Whether it's able to compete in the same marketplaces as some of these NHL teams, probably not necessarily, but like
And if it
it's
does,
it's
it's
good
something you'll
it's a good
see.
sister program to go with a lot of these. And I think the biggest thing to me, and with us having a daughter, um, we had always talked about originally, like, and I always wanted just to try hockey just to try it. And you were like, well, she can't ever do anything with it. But now,
Yeah, there's such a glass ceiling. Like my position was always why. Well, I always said why let her get knocked around, and you said there's no checking in girls hockey, but also you would say you were going to teach her how to hit.
yeah, and there's contact in women's
Right.
hockey,
And if
but there's contact in non-checking like youth hockey too. And I think it's undertaught because different your view of what contact is and checking.
But if you're going to teach her how to hit, she better expect to get hit back, right? So my position was always why let her get knocked around when how far is she going to take it? Okay, you spend so much money, and that's a whole different podcast or video investing in junior hockey. It is not cheap. It's just not cheap. And it's not a secret. It's not a cheap thing
Or
to get
youth hockey
into.
in general.
Right. Girls, boys doesn't matter. Um, so you invest all this money to what, get college scholarships that amount to what you invested in junior hockey in the first place. So like, did they have fun? Great. But like, that's thousands and thousands of dollars of fun if there's no room or no even like no option of playing pro hockey. Why? For that was always my take. Yes, it's fun.
Yeah.
Yes, she
Well,
learns
I
team
think the
values,
path
but
is
like,
different. Like originally ultimate goal for these women are to play for like their Olympic teams for their countries.
right.
You
But
get
honestly,
compensated. Don't get me
what
wrong.
percentage of women playing hockey were going to go off to be Olympians, right? Like, there was just the amount of opportunity was so minute and so minuscule. And this has me wanting to let our daughter, like, if she wants to play hockey, I'd be way more on board with it now because she has these role models, right? And that's huge. That's huge to see women doing this and like the frontier of it
Yeah.
is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's exciting, and I think hopefully, I'm sure a lot of these women have been kind of prepped with this mindset, but they are like, you talk about shattering the glass ceiling. It is. I mean, it's creating in a whole nother place, and I think more so than anything like that. But like, I think it would do wonders for the game of hockey.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, girls hockey has been growing. It's the highest growing, I think, sport in the U.S. But now with this going on, I think there's gonna be like I'm sure if you watch USA hockey numbers next year when they take them, as
Mm.
far as like
Like learn to
registers,
skates and things
yeah,
like
I think
that.
there's gonna be a massive rush of girls playing the sport because
Mm.
of this.
That's
So
a
that to
hot
me,
take.
that's pretty, and that's like organically just gonna drive the industry in itself. So I think just because this is going on, the success that I've seen so far, I mean, even like when we were watching last night, one of the things I was looking for was like when the camera went to the fans, like who was at the game, and it was primarily like
Like
a lot of these
women, little
young girls.
girls. Yes.
So yeah, I think because of that, like it's going to help the game of hockey grow the game of hockey,
Mm-hmm.
for boys and girls, but I think for girls especially, it's going to do wonders
Yeah.
for it.
There were two things that caught me like right in the feels. And like how like kids will stand at the VIP area and knuckle bump your kids and they're about to go onto the
Hmm.
ice. The players were walking out of the dressing room down a hallway and they had this group of like they must have been like 8 to 12 years old, like three on each side. Just I was just the cutest,
Mm.
most amazing. It wasn't even cute. It was just like a real moment, right? Um, for both sides, like the players and the little girls, because those players were those little girls at one point in time.
Hmm.
And also, when you know how they'll do like team arrivals, right? That's like the new thing you see on social media is you come dressed to impress. One of them walked in with her baby. Like one of these players walked in, baby in tow, and I was just like, oh,
Mm.
that's so. I've been trying not to swear this whole time, but that's cool, man. That's really cool. Um, so I certainly hope because realistically, if you think about it, 24 game season, if you're playing 2 games a week, right? Because I've seen a lot of the schedule is Wednesdays and Sundays or Wednesdays and
Mm.
Saturdays. Let's say you play some 2 games, 2 game weeks, some 1 game weeks. That's like January through March, really?
Something like that, yeah,
Yeah.
pretty
So
much.
I almost feel like the blink of an eye and it's over, right? And I'm sure maybe like if there's a postseason, it's a little bit in April, right?
Hmm.
But that's quick, especially you get so wrapped up into it. Like I definitely in the future I'm hoping more teams, longer seasons. Um,
Well, yeah, I mean, I think with them announcing the league and this summer they had the draft. This summer was basically their signing period for the most part.
mm-hmm,
It was a 15-round draft they did. So I think just the timing of trying to put everything together, like you probably couldn't do like a heavy game schedule necessarily in year one.
mm-hmm,
Um,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
we go back to the original birth of way back in the original six. It was very similar. It was a
mm-hmm.
short season. That was partly because everyone was working during the summertime. Um,
Yeah.
so I think that'll be a big part of it. But yeah, I mean, I imagine like as I see success, success for the sponsors and whatnot,
Mm-hmm,
if there's money to be made, they're definitely going to support it. I also think part of it was like they didn't want to compete against college hockey, so I think that might have been part of like why they started the season where it is, where college hockey is still going on, but you're not bumping into the start of it
mm-hmm.
necessarily, or football for the most
Well,
part.
that and you're fighting with rink space too. Like New York is playing out of the same stadium the Islanders are in, not stadium, but same
Yeah,
rink that the Islanders.
that's why they're playing Wednesday and
There's only
Sundays, I'm
so much.
sure.
There's only so much ice time. Um, there's that, and God, speaking of like, you were talking about French Canadians back in the old NHL days where you had to work 2 jobs. I think it's Minnesota. I saw it. I've been like stalking these girls' Instagram pages. They probably think I'm a loon. But one of them, and I think it was in Minnesota, she's a full time nurse. The full time nurse and playing like the inaugural season of pro hockey, women's pro hockey. And I just like
Hmm.
I just had to double take with that. I mean, it's hopefully this just grows and grows to a point where I hope she loves being a nurse. I hope it's her dream and her calling. But like, if she wanted to walk away from that and just be a pro women's player, like I hope one day that's an option for all of these women, right? Like, that's the kind of growth I want to see, where this can just be. I mean, you've been a pro athlete and tried to be a pro athlete. In order to do it and be successful, your training is like your career, right? Everything you do, your
Hmm.
rest, your recovery, how you eat, like you have to put everything into it. having another full-time job on top of that, or God forbid, like, could you imagine having a new baby while you were trying to put everything into training to be a pro athlete?
Sure.
Like, we're tired. We have
Yeah,
2 kids and we're
yeah.
tired. Could you imagine having your job as a coach, training to be an athlete, and these kids keeping us up all night long? That's what some of these women are doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, and I wasn't in that word long enough to really speak in depth about it, but yeah, I mean, if you're a professional athlete, it's 24/7. And again, the other part of it is, and I don't know if they think that's the case for this league right now, it's like you never know when you might be getting moved too.
Mm,
It's kind of the way it is in the coaching world too.
I think that's true for every athlete, like at any sort of level from junior on, right?
Yeah.
You're always like,
But I think for these women, if they go down this path, you just have to have good support and
mm-hmm,
good family support, especially if they're starting families, so they have their own kids.
mm-hmm.
And you see a lot of guys in pro hockey have to balance that. And it's a tough, from the conversation the individuals I know who played the game, like it's a really tough balance to have because you're spending more time with your team than your family.
Yeah, but again, a whole different podcast, a whole different conversation. Those men are getting paid to make that
Well,
balance worth it, right? Like,
at the NHL level, you go to the A or the East Coast League or even
yeah, I'm
SPHL,
talking
like
about like I'm
it's
talking
different.
right, right, right.
And they're still trying to make it work, and you
That's
know
fair.
they're making 45,000 a year, so it's
Hmm.
part of the struggle, the grind of getting to where you might want to get. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's
that's another
it's a
idea
tough
we
industry.
need to jot down as like the divorce rate of hockey coaches.
Yeah,
That's
I don't think that would be a good stat to bring up.
we're together forever.
Yeah, not a good stat to bring up. That
The balance is hard. It's really hard. I mean,
yeah.
this industry, this field, you have to give it everything and you have to really be with someone. I mean, we've been together for 7 years and we moved 5 times. Like,
Hmm.
humble brag, but like, thank your lucky stars you found a woman who would put up with that nonsense. Like, we move like we're in the military, except more frequently, and we don't get free health care. Like, it's, it's a lot. It's a lot of demanding. I just couldn't believe like these women are mothers, they're pro athletes, they're making history, they've got full time jobs. Like, they are heroes. And I don't say that like to be silly. Like, they
Yeah, but I think it's good that they're in the spotlight for, especially some of these older women playing for some of these teams that are multi, you know, whether it's Team USA or Canada gold medalists.
mm. What is it? The
Um,
one they call her Captain Clutch because she's I think Montreal's top goal scorer.
yeah,
Um,
she was their first overall
and I
draft pick,
think
I
she's
believe.
one of the older. I think she's in like her 30s. She's
Hmm.
30, freshly 30, I think. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so I think for some of these women who are older and had to kind of wait for this opportunity for this league to start up, I mean, I think
Hmm.
it's really special for them.
Hmm. And we'll say older with air quotes. Like, I don't mean to say 30 is old. 30 is not old, right?
In professional sports, it's getting there. So, well, at least in hockey,
I guess yes, from a
it's
professional
over.
athlete standpoint, yes. But in general,
But I
divorce
where
30
I
is
was
not
going with
old.
that was I think for some of these women who have kind of been waiting around and really like it's so different compared to the girl who's just coming out of
College, yeah.
Minnesota's first overall pick, just came out of college.
Was that
Um,
wasn't Grace? That was
Heise.
Taylor. Yeah, Heise.
Yeah, so it's a
She won
gopher.
Player of the Game from Wednesday. Player of the Game.
He's a very good player. Yeah, she's some really nice goals there. But for her just going right out of college to have that opportunity versus some of these women who have been, they haven't had that. They've been able to play in the Olympic team, whatnot,
Yeah,
but like they haven't been able to be quote unquote a
yeah,
professional, or they've had to go over to Europe or over to Asia to play
yeah.
professionally.
It's that classic thing. Like, if I've seen the view of the mounts because I've stand on the shoulders of like the giants before me type
Hmm.
thing. Like, they paved the way, and I'm sure that this idea has been trying to come through fruition for years, right? This didn't just happen. This has been
Yeah,
the labor of a lot of people. Like, it didn't just get dropped into our laps. And so I'm sure a lot of these quote unquote older athletes have been just literally waiting, I'm sure, at least for the last 3 years, if not five. Like, putting together something like this didn't happen in 6 months. I'm certain of it. unless you have a really good team behind it all.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of moving parts and pieces across multiple countries. So I'm sure there's been buzz about it, in women's hockey for quite a
Yeah,
while.
it's a long time coming. They've tried to do it in the past. But if you look at like where as far as women's hockey goes, like where college hockey is right now,
Hmm.
success of that, even the prep school route, high school route, there's women AAA hockey now, like just where the game is right now with women's hockey and the amount of opportunities there are to play and advance. There's even some junior women's leagues now, and I don't know a ton about that. That's relatively new
Mm.
and at least in the hockey world. But like now there's, it used to be for most women, like once that they're out of high school, they have to go to college. But now there's an opportunity for them, kind of like
To
men, that
develop.
have the 2 years necessarily of 2 or whatever years it may be of growth before you go to school.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's definitely not as much as in men's hockey. Like you kind of have to in the men's hockey unless you're something pretty special.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
just because the game has grown with that so much, like it kind of like was almost leading up to this being a possibility. And again, I'm sure they want to make sure that when they did this, they did the right way, so they had a really good effect and
So it
came
would
out a
keep.
door. Yeah, so
Hmm.
they could only grow on it. That they didn't want to run out of gate here and fall on their face.
Yeah, because it's almost if you did that when you try to do it, if you try to do it again, like, you know what I mean? It's like it had to be successful if they were going to launch it, and it
Yeah,
has, thankfully.
yeah, and again, like the games are really exciting too. I mean, Um, there's lots of physical play. There's lots of content. I like some of the rule changes they did to make the game. I think it makes the game more productive, but I just think it makes it more exciting for fans, more engaging.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, you
I mean,
know,
there was a couple little tumbles, little tussles we saw there.
yeah, they're not fights,
Stop
but some
it.
scrums.
Yeah.
But no, again, like,
We'll
and
we'll
that's the
call it
biggest
getting a
thing I
little
think.
chippy.
Yeah, a
A
little
little
cheap, but I
chippy.
think that's the biggest thing when and this is probably gonna be the hardest thing from like a traditional fan market that when they watch these games, it's part of the reason I think it makes it so exciting is like these women are so competitive.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't think probably for like, maybe I use myself for example, a traditional man's approach, like they didn't expect that watching a women's game. 'Cause you don't necessarily expect that women's game to be that competitive, that feisty. I'm just saying, like I'm sure like it's the
Traditional
majority.
man's.
I'm sure that's where a lot of guys are coming from out there. But like when I watch the game, I think like you can see the competitive edge in the play,
Yeah, they're
and that's
athletes.
makes it exciting to watch.
They're top tier athletes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just like they're competing on plays, and you can tell like they've got some really good high level coaching going on. So
Mm.
so the games are really exciting. And I think for a fan who's never watched hockey, they can turn that on and watch it, and you can see that, and you can see the energy from the
Hmm.
players, and that's
Yeah.
exciting to watch. I'm John Bannicord here on the first podcast. Thank you for joining us. It's an exciting conversation. We look forward to diving more into the PWHL here next week.
You got it.